really important to have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this degen?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is a permanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
Really, at the end of the day, it's just the matter of a macro market. It's just what happens.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, so we can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto degenerates, ducks and squirrels, I'm dropping my notes all over the place. Welcome to another Degen Roundtable Book Club. We are going to be covering a fantastic book, How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler. I'm joined tonight by two fantastic guests. I've got our co-host Zenith. You guys know from the Degen Roundtable, Zenith is our government and legal analyst. And we're also joined by David Moondog Durr, who is one of the gentlemen who has been recommending this book for a long, long time. Welcome, folks, to the show tonight. How are you doing, Mr. Moondog? We're going to start with you instead of we normally start with Zenith, but we're gonna switch it up. What's new and exciting with you, broski? How are you doing?
Howdy rowdies, living life. Excited to get to this book. A little sad that I didn't get a chance to completely reread it this past week because our out-of-town business partner came into town for the first time in months, and so he had priority of my time. But I did enjoy getting to dip back into it, and I am going to finish it again, even though it won't be for book club, but just for my own enjoyment. I do really like this book. So
I will say it is definitely a fantastic book. I very much enjoyed the concept of it, and I gotta say, like after starting this book up and getting through it a little bit, I feel like not super duper called out, but it's like I've been reading books wrong my entire life, and now I know why. But anyways, enough about me, Mr. Zenith Broski. What's new and exciting with you? How are you doing, man?
Gentlemen, good to see you guys as always. I'm just hanging in there, and outside of that, pleasantly surprised by this book. I thought it was going to be probably a lot shorter, actually, but
yeah,
it's dense, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. So I'm excited to talk about all of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in here, and I'm gonna be honest. Like, I probably maybe picked up about 5 or 10% of the stuff that was inside this book. Like, and I'm realizing now, having listened to this one, that like I've been only getting about 2 or 3% of all the books that I've been reading, or maybe 5% or something like that of everything, other than maybe Sci-Vive. I probably picked up quite a bit on Sci-Vive because we spent so much time on it. But it's like this book really drills down on the importance of paying attention, writing notes, like engaging actively with your brain on the concepts inside the book while you're doing it. And normally, like when I'm consuming books for book club, it's like while I'm climbing on a tower or while I'm driving around the country or something, and it's like my mind is half somewhere else and it's half like listening to this thing that's going on in the background, and that's how I normally absorb the books and stuff. But it's like, holy shit, I guess if I really, really cared about the books, then I would not be doing them a great justice or anything. So I thought that was quite fascinating. It's like, oh, well, I guess we put as much importance into the things that we do as we get to decide at any point. So neither here nor there. Enough about me, enough about you guys. It's time to talk to the folks at home. That's right, guys. It's time for the chat motherfucking shoutouts, the best part of the show, where we interact with you guys at home who are cool enough to interact with us. We've got 7 live viewers right now. Let's see. Oh, this is nice and easy. We've got Mr. West rolling in. Big Booty Latina loves we up. Yes, I suppose that we're up. We're not up in the cryptosphere, I'll tell you that. There's been some fantastic price action going on. And I got to say, I'm glad that I live under a rock and that I don't know and I don't pay attention to anything going on in the cryptosphere other than the Sunday show. But apparently, number go down and people get sad and some crazy shit's been going on. I'm just over here living in La La Land, not paying attention to any of it. But That was
Yeah, we'll have to figure out what we're doing on Sunday because it's Super Bowl stuff. I may have been voluntold to help host a party, but at the same time, we've had enough action, and I think it might be decisive enough as well that it definitely warrants a stream because
yeah.
it's a little bit more than just number go down. It is getting through some critical areas and showing some critical breakdowns in the chart. But additionally, there is potentially a silver lining out of it, and that's because the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index got all the way down to the single digits. And historically, when that happens, that is usually a pretty decent price point.
We got single digit fear and greed. Fucking A,
Yeah.
man.
I mean, we went below last cycle's all-time high, which I had mentioned might be a thing to look out for a bottom signal, but we already broke it. So,
Oh, we
probably a
did.
good price to
Fucking A. Yeah, that is not something that happens very commonly. But I guess like most of the things that happen most of the time is like stuff that's not very common. By the way, we're also joined, speaking of common, the opposite of common, we've got my fantastic brother here reminding you guys to like the fucking video. Like the video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, do all of those YouTube thingamajiggers. I think I have a light switch over here I can play with, but good enough, Sam. Thank you. Do all that good stuff. We love it. We appreciate it. We super duper like it. And we've got a question here from Mr. West. Do you guys plan to stack coins like Ethereum and Solana and stake them as we crash? I'm not doing that with Ethereum or with Solana. I was talking to a buddy of mine. He's like, bro, Ethereum's down to like $1,900. I'm like, wow, that's lower than it's been in a long time. And then he immediately came back. He's like, it's getting even lower, going fucking crazy. But fucking nuts with the coin action. We're also joined by Miss Tam Tam. Miss Tam Tam says, hello, my lovelies. Hello to you too, Tam Tam. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Glad that we could have some of the normal DGen Roundtable book club folks in here. Her phone, including her X app, has been locked, waiting for Apple to fix it. Oh, well, I guess Tam's on the computer or on the laptop. So there you go. This is why, ladies and germs, it is good to have both an iPhone and an Android. This is actually my work phone for Sam. So have something for everything. Apple is great until there's a problem with it, and then it's like the worst thing in the world. It's like they're super user friendly and everything, but then when there's a problem, it's a big problem. But there you go. And also, Tam Tam is very excited to see you, Moondog. That is outstanding. She says, "Great to see you, Moondog. Most fantastic."
hello.
It is great to see Moondog. I always love when we get him on our streams and we have good conversations. There's always fantastic stuff to be had when we're talking to Mr. David Moondog Leader. Speaking of great things to talk about, I'm going to do a quick little summary of this book. Let me see if I have my notes here. I do not. I closed it out. What a silly thing to do. Wow. Oh, no, I didn't. I just made a new tab. Haha. Excellent. All right. So, guys, check it out. Here's going to be a quick little 3-sentence summary of what the book is. All right, so How to Read a Book is a practical manual for extracting actual understanding from books instead of passively consuming pages. Adler teaches that reading is an active, trainable skill, and that most people never learn how to properly read serious nonfictions. It's for degens, builders, and sovereign thinkers. Oh man, AI is starting to make my summaries specifically tailored for the Degen Roundtable show. That's hilarious. This book is for degens, it's for builders, and it's for sovereign thinkers. This book is all about signal extraction in a world of noise. So next, we're going to go through basically like the generic sections of the book. So the first part of the book talks about like the problem with reading, and that's like the first 15% or so of the book, where it goes through like most people read wrong. Most people confuse reading words with understanding ideas. How education teaches literacy and not comprehension. Like basically a big problem with our school systems is that the schools teach you to memorize things. They don't teach you to understand. They don't teach you to be a free sovereign thinker. They teach you like, oh, repeat these data and statistics back to me, like a good little calculator or a notebook or like a Google machine. And it's like, no, that's not how you create like a better world and stuff. So that is that's a problem. And also that passive reading produces familiarity but not necessarily mastery. In order to get mastery over the thing that you're reading, you have to actually like sacrifice thought energy into doing it. You have to question the stuff going on in the book. You have to oh shoot, what was the rest of it? You have to like think critically and analyze, and then understand, and then choose whether you agree or disagree, and be able to like voice that opinion. But yeah, the next part of the book, section 2, or well, the next section of the book talks about the 4 levels of reading. So we've got elementary reading, which is just like basic literacy, which is like I can read this thing that's in front of me and there it is, right? Next you've got inspectional reading, which is where you basically skim the book with like a very specific intent. You look at titles, you look at I don't know what TOC stands for. You look at intros and conclusions, you look at like the meat and
Table of
potatoes.
contents.
Table of contents, yes, table of contents. Thank you. Wow, I don't know why that one totally escaped me. You skim the table of contents, the intros, the conclusions. You look at the top and the bottom of every paragraph, and you kind of sort of skip the middle. And that's how you kind of figure out like, okay, where's the good stuff in this book? I'm just kind of like leafing through it. It's kind of like a cursory glance sort of thing. Next up is the analytical reading, which is where you go through deeply, slowly, and demandingly, where you pay real good attention, and you write notes, and you like really think and process. And then the 4th type of reading is syntopical reading, which is this is reading multiple books on the same topic in order to form your own view. So this is like, you've read Atlas Shrugged, so now you go and you read Fountainhead, or you go and you read War and Peace, or you go and you read oh man, what's another thing that falls into that category? The Sovereign Individual, right? You read a whole bunch of books on the same sort of idea, and then you get to form your own opinion. That's syntopical reading. That requires that you have like a broad expansion, like collection or access to other books that are similar, and also like that you know where to find them and stuff.
And one of the
But yeah.
best collections that I've come across, Mortimer Adler put together when he was working at Encyclopedia Britannica, and that's the Great Books of the Western World series. So a lot of people might be familiar with the Harvard. There's a Harvard Shelf of Fiction, and then there's a Harvard Classics. It's a bunch of Mortimer Adler had a problem with the Harvard Classics was one of those things that was sold door to door, and the sales pitch was that you could get a classical education on a 5-foot bookshelf. Mortimer's problem with it was that it was a selection of books, but it was not only a selection of books, it was a selection from the books. So in Great Books of the Western World, and another index that he put together while he was at Encyclopedia Britannica called Annals of America, they are all complete text documents. So in Great Books of the Western World, the first 2 books, he actually has that introduction to what he calls the Great Conversation, which are these ideas and motifs that great thinkers and great authors have had discussion throughout the ages with each other on. Because especially in classical education, a lot of the aristocrats, the way that they were educated was through the reading of the classics, what was available at the time. And then the people that were considered the geniuses of their ages, they wrote various treaties or letters, often in response to reading those classics, or definitely referencing those classics in their treaties, so that people could have a common ground or familiarity to help imagine what structure that they're constructing. So he sees it the common threads through those books as a dialogue between each other, and then he has about, I think it's 102 terms of basically the great ideas of humanity or common themes that come up. So like angel, what is an angel? Or law, what is law? And it's these 102 core ideas or themes that he found to be of value, and then actually indexes whenever. So it gives like some of the definitions and the historical context of how that term has been used throughout the ages and in various works. And then the other thing about the Great Books of the Western World, when you're done reading a passage, the reason it's topical is because it indexes to other passages and other works that also talk about that topic. So you'll have under Angel, you'll have a list of all the books and where you can find it talking about that. But then also there'll be notes inside of the books that show you hey, if this was an interesting line to you, maybe go read, Dante's Inferno, this line, or in John Milton's Paradise Lost, read how it's similar and different in this way. So the syntopical reading on reading multiple books at once is understanding the common themes and differences that are between them, and then also, so it's engaging at a conversational level. At the analytical level, you're engaging with the book that you're reading, and then at a syntopical level, it's almost like a group discussion. You're engaging with multiple books at once. So
Yeah, which is a fascinating notion, thinking about, and I love one of the things that he described in the book, which is like sometimes authors will have discussions with each other through the publishing of their books, where it's like that's their conversation back and forth. It's like, I've got this massive idea, and instead of an email thread or like an X post or something, it's like, just back in the day, it was you write a book and you get it published, and it's like that's how they would like communicate ideas and things. And super fascinating, and like tip top technology, tip top technology at the time and stuff. Z, you got any thoughts on this?
I think one of the interesting things that he pointed out in the book was not all books are worth trying to like fully understand and critique, or even like go for deep comprehension. The guy straight up just calls out, he's like, yes, there are a lot of just not great books out there. I want to say he whittled it down to like less than 100 truly great books is what he called it, as things that like really you can like pour your whole attention span into and really try to critique and understand and pair up with other ones and stuff like that. But the guy definitely didn't pull his punches with be like, look, sometimes books suck. They're not written well. They argue ridiculous things. They follow illogical trains of thought or make contradicting arguments. And he's like, don't sweat those ones. That's not a you problem. That's a them problem.
Yeah, the paraphrased quote that I put in the Telegram is, there are a few books that deserve to be read very well, and there's a great many books that deserve to simply be inspected. So it's like, yeah, that definitely checks out. It's like most of the books you'll be okay with a cursory understanding, but like the few great ones, like you really ought to pour over the stuff that's really important to you. What you got, Moondog?
The distinctions I remember from way back are, first level, there are books that are purely for entertainment or trash books. You're not going to get anything from them other than maybe amusement. A good book, you can read it once and get what you need out of it. A great book, it's above your head, so you're actually going to struggle to get everything out of it the first time. You're going to have to stretch, and not only will you be able to go back to it and get things out of it, go back to it more than once and get things out of it, but in fact, that's the point, is that you'll have to in order to get everything out of it that you can.
Yeah, and like the thing that came to mind was what's the book, Zenith, that we always make fun of by Adam Smith? Wealth of Nations.
Wealth of Nations.
The Wealth of Nations, where it's like
explicit shout out in the book early on. He goes,
yes,
Wealth of Nations
several times.
The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith is a practical book. And if you're in the Telegram there, I posted the meme that was like, you sure about that?
Yeah.
You sure about that?
I think I definitively agree with the author that this book is above my head, and that it requires a lot more like intelligence. Because like honestly, Adam Smith's work is what a lot of economics and like Western libertarian values are built upon. So it is a very important book. It is definitely way above my reading level. So like, because it's so impossible to comprehend and understand, it's like, okay, it's probably something pretty damn valuable in here. But at this stage of my life and with what I'm doing, like I'm a small chess piece on a big chessboard doing small chess moves. It's like probably not the best thing for me to learn.
Obviously,
but,
the running joke with us is that Wealth of Nations was a bit torturous because it's like 36 hours long, and the guy famously like cannot get to a point, just elaborates on elaborations on elaborations on tangents on rabbit holes. But
my goodness,
it's a funny haha for us. But at the same time, if you read this book, How to Read a Book, you'll understand that when he says this thing, like it is a practical book, he's not saying like, oh wow, this is super practical and useful in my daily life. He's like, no, he's putting it in a genre of like, this is a book that is for practical use, in the style of practical writing.
Yeah, for sure. And if you'd read this one before, you might also feel a little bit more liberated or flexible in how you approach reading that 36-hour book versus feeling that you need to consume it, from front to back. And then if you miss something, do that again or whatever, then you can feel free to, like, you know what? No, I can inspect this. I can skim it. I could break it up. I could do different things to make, because the point isn't to finish it. That's the thing too, is understand, why are you reading this book? And a lot of people's default goal, if they don't ever ask themselves that question, is going to be to finish it. But if you answer that question and it's to learn something, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that you could learn something and it could take you in the first hour or 3 hours, and it could be something that's worth, spending some time on, and then moving on. So that's what I liked about How to Read a Book, is it's also a practical book. It's a practical book because it gives you practical steps on what to do. But what I really like is he identifies the problems that people have, or that he's noticed as an educator, in literacy in general. And just he did talk early on too about there being two major teaching styles that the schools sometimes oscillate between, with phonetics and sight reading.
Yeah.
During the time that he had written this book, and during the time that most of us probably learned to read, phonetics was the dominant teaching style for how to read. That they've gone back to sight reading in the past, 15 to 20 years, and it's actually causing a lot of problems. Not only because in and of itself, it's a less efficient way to learn reading and to have understanding, but it's compounded actually by the technologies that our kids are exposed to, because it's feeding into the instant gratification dopamine ride, being an observer versus the more active, critical, having to work to sound something out and then figure out what it sounds like, what it means. You're just memorizing. It's literally more into the zombification.
Wow.
So that's something to be aware of in the education system in general right now. There is educators are always going to cry about kids, whatever, but being lazy, being whatever. There is obviously technological implications from the ease of access and the comfort and the privilege that they've grown up on, that they don't feel that they need to put as much effort to learn something. But at the same time, a lot of them are so adaptable to like the technologies and things. They could smoke you if they're motivated enough, like, and they need to find information and it's out there, they just, but it's about how active or engaged you are. And unfortunately, the memorizing it, sight reading process is a less engaged and a less effective. And it's if you want to be really conspiratorial about it, it feeds into the make people easier to control via passive observer, manufactured consent type deal.
And the matrix batteries in the pods, right?
Yeah. But
wow, what a crazy notion. They lack the motivation, but they have better technical skill. That they can find the shit better than you, but you're more motivated and you have that internal drive to like do stuff, and just as a function of having to earn the information versus being essentially freely given the information. So it's a very interesting, Ledger's got a balance kind of thing.
I was just saying, the kids that grew up and they still had they were learning and all their gray matter was still there, and they became more adaptable versus like I'm still relatively young and have a quote unquote high IQ, but dude, I log into Adobe or Microsoft or something that I haven't in a while, and I'm like, where is the menu that I'm used to? Come on, like, how do I navigate this nonsense? Or even like talking about having an Apple and an Android. I was listening to one of Linus' videos recently about forcing his Apple users to use an Android for a month. And the conversation really does make you think of like, what's the difference between intuitive and familiarity? But yeah, I don't want to digress too much on that.
That's a lovely conversation. I would love to just tear into all the Apple standard users and be like, look at you, when they take away your security blanket and you have to interact with the real world that is Android, and it's just like, I'm an Android maximalist, much to my brother's chagrin. So
My
sorry
last
if that
iPhone
bleeds
was the
over and
Siri.
offends people. What's that?
My last iPhone was the Siri,
Yeah,
and that's back when you could still jailbreak iPhone, so it was,
yeah.
modifiable enough for me to interact with. But after that, you know, Android was
Mhm.
built for you to be able to customize or be more customizable. So I just gravitated that way.
It's a nice squishy gel-lined bed that you lie into, and it just completely envelops you. And as opposed to like the cold, hard concrete that is the Android phone,
Yeah.
resilient. Man, what a rabbit hole. We could totally go down that all day. But before we go down too many rabbit holes, we've got some more folks that have joined us. We're joined by Mr. Slide 180, my good friend Josh. Shout out to you, broski. Cheers, amigo. Can't wait till you're back in the zone and I can come and visit you again. We've also got Your Health Unplugged, who says, "What's up, D-Gens? This is Dr. Alan Chen, by the way. What's up, D-Gens? Burning the midnight oil this week. Need something to do while not watching the Super Bowl. Excellent, broski. We got you covered. I'm not going to be watching the Super Bowl. I will be here doing some streaming and things on Sunday, and I suppose Mr. Zenith might be joining me um, to talk about what the hell's going on in the cryptosphere, because I sure as fuck don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, good to see you, Dr. Chen. Welcome to the show. We're talking about how to read a book because you're doing it wrong. Everyone's doing it wrong, apparently. We've next up got Mr. Funk Master Hex, who says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm getting tired, boss." Yes, I feel you, broski. I'm getting tired too. Tired of this crypto bullshit. But you know what? Like, honestly, I didn't even know because I wasn't watching the screen. I wasn't doing anything. I only know that the crypto stuff is happening because I'm on the DGen roundtable and people talk about it in the chats. It's like, oh, shit, look at that. Bitcoin's at fucking it's at 70, it's at 60, it's at it just keeps dropping. Fucking Ethereum doing its thing. So I get you, broski. You're tired. Keep on keeping on and believe in the things that work for you. And invest in the stuff that is fantastic. We've next up got Mr. Hexagid Lost in Asia, who is asking who sold. I didn't sell because I didn't know what the fuck's going on, but I'm sure plenty of people have sold. But hey, it is what it is. If you want to sell, then sell. If you want to buy, then buy. Do the thing that you're going to do. But yeah, good to see you, Mr. Hexagon Lost in Asia. Everyone's favorite Air Force veteran over there in not the Middle East, in the Southeast Asia. So good to see you, broski. We've also got Arceus, who says, "Just because you use a current technology doesn't mean you know how it works. There are a lot of people who can post something on TikTok who don't know how to turn it off and turn it back on again." Absolutely. Same thing with your car. Same thing with your air conditioner. Same thing with
And
electricity.
to his point, I mentioned, Zoomers having a certain bit of techno savvy, but it depends. Everything's variable. There are plenty of Zoomers that actually don't know how to use a desktop or they've done everything on an iPhone or tablet interface.
Yeah,
So,
they got
file
this.
explorers are things that were necessary for us before, or those of us that still use desktop things,
Yeah.
they get on there and they're like, what's this?
Oh man, we're gonna be dinosaurs here pretty soon, Moondog. You mean Z? We're gonna like, what do you mean? Control C, Control V. What? No, you long click and then you click copy and then you long click and hit paste.
I'll be rocking the desktop till the day I die. I bet.
Yeah,
This is just I don't know how it gets better than this. Everything
it's
else is
just
a
a better
regression, in
tool.
my opinion.
Yeah, the desktop is just a better tool. It processes better. It shows you things. You have a better user interface. Uh, you don't have to go like this all the time. That's my thoughts. But anyways, we're getting caught up on that one pretty damn good. I'm gonna go ahead and continue through the parts of the book. Let's see, where was I? I left off with the elemental, the inspectional, analytical, and syntopical. We've next up. They go through the analytical reading in detail. This is about 30% of the book, where you figure out how to classify the book, like what kind it is. You have to figure out how, like, can you state the author's main argument in your own words, separate from his? Do you understand it enough to be able to translate it and to regurgitate it out back into the world that other people might get it? And identify key terms and assumptions, and disagreeing intelligently, not emotionally. It's like, if this book makes you upset, well, cool beans. Doesn't really matter when it comes to understanding. A good author benefits from being a good persuader and a good emotional manipulator, but not all authors are capable of doing those things. And if the author wants you to be on his team and think the same things that he does, which odds are they do because they're writing the damn book, they want other people to read the book and agree with them and think about the things, or, like read the book and disagree with them intelligently. The point is like, the reader has to be able to separate their emotions from the intellectual stuff that's happening in the book in order to correctly consume. Like, you have to be able to take in good faith, like the author's argument, and then process it and then determine, oh, is this right? Is this wrong? Do I agree? Do I disagree? Factual, non-factual, et cetera, et cetera. If you just have an emotional reaction to everything that you read, then congratulations, you're a dog, or you're a child, or you're like an animal that just like literally gets input, output, and that's all that there is to it. Got to be able to think. Oh, and then the quote here is, you haven't understood a book until you can argue with it either for or against of your own accord. The next part of the book, which is about reading different kinds of books, this is more of like the syntopical sort of thing. Talks about how like philosophy is not science, is not history, is not practicality. One of the things that we were kind of sort of touching on is the difference between practical books and conceptual books, or like practical books and theory books. The difference being that like a practical book is like, hey, this is how you take apart your car. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It's action based. It's for the reader to go out and do a certain number of things, interact with stuff in the real world. A theoretical book is like, hey, this talks about the concept of this sort of thing. It doesn't require any sort of action. So like theoretical books can solve conceptual problems, but they don't solve real world problems. And then practical books don't of their own accord solve real world problems, but they need to inspire people to go and take action to then solve the real world problem. So practical books, if it's to be an effective practical book, it has to inspire the reader to take action in the direction of the practicality that it aims to do. Now, if it's like something as simple as like the instructions on how to change the fan belt on your car, then it's like, oh, okay, well, my inspiration is my fan belt is broken, so I don't need to be inspired. I just need to follow the damn steps. But if it's something a little bit more out there, then it behooves the author to be able to not only give the practical information, but also to give the motivation behind what is the like how do I get the reader to go and take these actions, right? Like if I want to change the political system and I'm going to give them a practical means to do so, then I need to inspire them to go out and take action and go do the voting, go I don't know, run over your enemies, or whatever, good advice, bad advice. So there needs to be a little bit of practicality and a little bit of motivation in there. With the theoretics, it's just you don't really need that sort of thing. Go ahead.
One of the most practical books off the top of my so Millionaire Real Estate Agent by Gary Keller. And you want to talk about motivation, having the practicality and the motivation, you can get everything that you need from like to understand as far as like marketing, budget, what to expect, what action steps to start taking, how to start measuring and making adjustments from reading that book. You can then also go sign up to any Keller Williams, whatever, and they'll have all these training programs or weekend seminar, whatever, that is literally all regurgitation of that book, but it's meant to go rah, rah, and make you feel good. Like, so if you've read that book, you're not going to feel like you're learning anything new if you're focused on that, but you are going to feel all of the getting into your body, Tony Robbins, peer pressure, people around you, getting excited, getting hyped. So, that's a practical book that actually has like a whole, help like system and organization of motivation and getting people motivated to make, because what it's motivating you to do is to make cold calls or to develop leads and like to work and to bring revenue into the brokers get a split off of. So the more worker bees they have throwing mud against the wall, the more chance they get it. But I just, when you're talking about practical books, that is one of the most useful practical books that I've read, where like it's like, hey, you want to do something, you don't know anything about it, here's a book. It tells you, it gives you a framework, and then it's up to you to go fill in the framework and actually do the things if you want the fruit, the results that you're after. But then you can also pay 30% of your commissions to sign up for Keller Williams brokerage to remind you that, because they say Zig Ziglar is attributed with motivation doesn't last just like a shower. That's why I recommend it daily. So if you need
That's
that
good.
external motivation and reminders, yeah, there's a way to pay for it. But if you want to pay yourself because you have the discipline to do it, then you can do, full commission brokerage, pay $125 or whatever transaction. Anyways, I'm getting into real estate stuff from a book.
Is
But
that how you got into real estate? Was from this book that you're talking about?
Millionaire Real Estate Agent was what motivated me to go ahead and get my real estate license, because I was already an investor. And so I saw how I could immediately use a license to augment my investing. And then also there's a series of profiles and interviews in the back. And one of the people that was profiled was like 15 minutes from where I was at the time. So I
Oh
hounded
shit!
them down to see if I could get a coffee and
Hell
ended up
yeah!
going and working for their brokerage.
Oh, that's
Nice.
awesome. What are
Yep.
the odds of that?
It's fun times.
I like that.
It's Joe Rothschild, but it's not the Rothschilds. Like it's
Oh,
spelled slightly different. Because I had somebody
I
before,
say.
like, the Rothschilds, and I was like, because he's a big real estate guy, especially here in like forever,
A
in
Rothschild being a
Houston.
real estate person? Unheard of. I would
But
never guess such a thing.
yeah, these guys, him and his brother, they've been here for it was 20, 25 years when I did it 10 years ago. So it's been 30, 35 years now. But yeah, they're when the person was like a Rothschild, I was like, because he's a big name around Houston. I was like, yeah, and they're like, ooh, and then later I realized they were thinking of a different kind of Rothschild.
Yep.
Anyways,
It's a famous name. But anyways,
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there. We've got the rest of the book to cover
Yep.
the summary of the last section. Section 5, the payoff section is all about becoming like a self-directed thinker. And it talks about how reading builds independent judgment, which is probably the most important thing. Is you need to be able to judge things of your own accord without having to rely on the author to hold your hand and fucking be like, oh, this is where you gotta go fucking, take care of your life. It's like, no, you have to be able to do it yourself. You have to be able to solve the problems without Mama Bear, without Daddy Bear. It's like the world is cold and cruel. So about
I have a curiosity.
yeah.
Go ahead. So
I
I have a
was just going to
curiosity.
say stopping outsourcing opinions and books being tools, not trophies. But that's all that was in that section, and that's the end of the summary.
Copy. Sitting here thinking about his claims that in order to gauge your understanding of a book, you should be able to argue with it. You know, I've actually never considered this before, so it's a fresh thought. Throw it out to you guys. I wonder how many people out there are hampered in their ability to critically read, whether it's a book or the news or whatever it is, due to having too agreeable of a personality type, to their social resistance to it being okay to say no to someone else's face, just inherently going into whenever they're reading something, it doesn't occur to them, or they don't have the habit of saying, no, fuck you, that's wrong, you're stupid, because they're a nice person. That's not part of their daily vocabulary. They dodge it or dip around it, or it goes into the cognitive dissonance or whatever other type of things they've learned to deal with that. So I'm wondering if literacy could be tied, if the ability to deep literacy, not just phonetic literacy, but deep literacy of being able to contend with ideas or contend with an author, it requires you to be able to disagree in the first place. So if nothing else, at least pointing that fact out to our listeners, like, hey, you need to disagree. You need to have the power to disagree. That's a part of what's going to make you a potent reader, to help the people who have developed a fear around disagreement or a caution around it to be a little bit more comfortable with it, at the very least.
I got a thought to tee off of that, and it's that I think that also not only might it be a concern that too many people are agreeable, but it'll also be that too many people find themselves just regurgitating last thing they heard, as opposed to thinking critically or
That's
something
a form
like
of
that.
lazy
And like,
agreeableness.
lazy agreeableness is like, oh,
You're
well,
disagreeing with it because it's
I watched this on 60 Minutes, or I watched this on The View, or I watched this on, Fox or CNN or whatever, right? I watched this on Tim Pool. I watched this on my my Nintendo 64. and so this is the opinion that's over there, and so I like Nintendo 64, I like CNN, I like Tom Hardy's Facebook, so I say the same things that he does, and if anyone else says different thing, then they're bad guy, and either I just ignore them or I shun them, or like I just agree with everybody because agreeable person. But
And
that's an
also,
interesting. Go ahead.
kind of like tangential, but touching it is, um, some people might feel that if they are disagreeing or devaluing the opinion of what they took the time to invest in to learn in the first place, there's a little bit of a sunk cost fallacy. Like, oh, this has to be good because I took my time to do it. So then there's almost a little bit of built-in defensiveness around it versus being willing to be like, oh, I gave this a chance and it was freaking stupid. It's IKEA. Let's return it.
Yeah,
Or
you're talking about tying your ego to the thing as opposed to
the sunk
being
cost
objective.
fallacy of, yeah, if the effort that you've put into this is a book that maybe you're not a reader and this is a book that you've taken the time to actually give a chance in the first place. And then it's like you get into it and you're like, this is retarded. And in the back of your head, you're probably like, this is why I'm not a reader to begin with. But the story that you tell people is, oh yeah, this one book, when they're talking about reading, especially, you're like, oh, this one book that I read, and then there's you know, but you feel that it had to be worth it because otherwise you feel stupid for having give it what you gave.
Wow. So because you sacrificed value to get the information must be true because now it's valuable, kind
I
of thing.
mean, not
Like
consciously, but unconsciously, when
yeah.
people spend effort on something, they're less likely to tear it down. So
Hmm.
unless they have a reason to go after it, to deconstruct it, um, then there's a built-in cushion that's saying, hey, you gave into this, so but it's not deterministic in any way, but it is something that's worth attending to and reminding, like, okay, it is okay, even even if you read the whole thing, like, or if you're in the middle of a book and you're like, no, this is stupid, it's not worth my time, I don't like the way the author is structuring arguments, I don't think that I'm ever going to be convinced of anything meaningful or useful from, then you can, put it down and move on. You don't have to finish the book in order to, for example, be able to have conversations with other people about the content or why you found it, what you found it to be, how useful you found it to be, which was not very. Some people might feel that they can't even, unless they grind through and finish it, then they won't be able to go on their hate mission. If that's what they're just like, oh, this is freaking stupid, I already know it's wrong from the second chapter. Like, if it's something that personal enough or to you that it's wrong, like you're not obligated to anyways. I'm tangenting out now, but I think Z had some thoughts on wills back in the day, so I'm gonna pass the mic.
Yeah, well, your original question was, are people less prone to disagree with the book due to their personality types? And then additionally it went into kind of like the sunk cost fallacy prevents you from wanting to disagree with it. I think a lot of that all really boils down to the assumed notions that you go into whatever it is that you're doing. And the author does call out, like, these are tools, not trophies, but it's almost like slightly backwards in that sense, which is like, if you're looking for a tool but you don't find it interesting, you're likely not to finish it out. At the same time, if you are going to finish it out, you're probably going to use it as a trophy and then claim to the world that you read The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. So now that you know and you can tell everyone else, you don't need to do this. But the disagreement thing, all these come in with their preconceived notion. Because I mean, when Will and I went on the devil's advocate arc that I forced us down, it was like we specifically set out to find books that we thought we were going to disagree with. And along the process, tried to give it a fair shake along the way to understand what the author is trying to argue. And then also at the same time, try to find that point of disagreement or the breaks in logic that we disagreed with and stuff. I wouldn't argue that that's time wasted. But the reason that I would argue that is because I went into the situation with my preconceived notion of, this is going to be a thing that I'm probably not going to maybe even get a whole lot of use out of or even enjoyment, but it's important for the exercise. So I think it really just depends on what you bring to the table, and your intentionality with the reading and the literacy as well is really going to be a lot of what you get out of it. And I think that breaks down through the entirety of this book and as well, because even if it's from just like the elementary level of reading, even to the synthesis and what is it, syntopical reading,
Mm-hmm.
because at both levels, one of them at the lower level is like, I need to learn words and what words are and what they mean. And then at the top level, you're like, I need to build out my like intellectual knowledge base to build from.
Yeah.
At both points, you're expanding something in different directions, but at the same time, you're looking for expansion. If you're looking for like kind of those slot books that he talks about or the trash books, just there for fun, well, you already have a preconceived notion going into that as well, which is like, I am here to be entertained. I'm not here to like really think about things. So I I don't know if there's much you can draw about a person based on how they interact with the books. I think what you can draw from it is what do they go into it trying to do.
Right. I was just curious because I'd actually never considered that. I'd Dunning-Krugered my way of interacting with books, and for one of the first times I was stopping to consider that people with different personality traits may not be comfortable doing things that I just take for granted, which is being like, that's retarded.
That's totally fair.
But also,
to home real quick what Dunning-Kruger is.
Dunning-Kruger is a confirmation bias where you see yourself as the baseline of what you're measuring other things off of. So you may even know that you're above average, but you still believe yourself to be, you still believe that baseline is closer to what you are than whatever it actually is. So the net effect is that if you're really stupid, you believe that you're smart, you believe that you're average, so you believe that you're actually smarter than you are. And if you're really smart, you actually believe you're closer to average than you actually are. So you think you're stupider than you are. That's the way that it gets used in pop culture is usually idiots thinking that they're geniuses. The other side of the coin that people who are pretty is basically, it's in the aphorism where it says the most qualified people or the most expert people are the quietest or the least likely or the least qualified or the loudest, because experts are the ones that are usually couching their language with caveats, or they're most they know how much they don't know, so they're most timid about making but I was using it in the purely where it came from, which is Dunning-Kruger, which is using yourself as baseline, and that's where the bias is. It's that you assume yourself closer to baseline than you probably actually are, or you measure baseline based off of your own experience because that's what you have, unless you have some other thing to do it from. The default is your own experience.
Makes sense.
And what I was going to say also is that, so you mentioned on the Devil's Advocate art that you had an intentionality of wrestling with the author in that scenario. So of course there's almost an agreement of going into it with like, hey, I'm going to be willing to argue with this. That's the purpose. But also, so I guess also I want to point out, like, there's a deference to authority bias that people can fall into. And if you're reading a book, you're already assuming deferring to this as an authority. You're probably less likely to fall into that trap if you're on a Devil's Advocate art. But where you're more likely to fall into the trap is if you're finding utility in the book, or it is somehow impressing you in some way. So I do want to point out, even in that scenario, if you're impressed with the book or you're seeing it as an authority, it's claiming to be an authority on something. That doesn't mean that you don't have a right to disagree with some point or some other sub-purpose. Just so don't be intimidated. Feel empowered to argue with them, because first of all, you're doing it in your own head. Like, this is you engaging with it. It's like, and that's how you're going to grow. That's how you're going to get something out of it, is by wrestling with ideas. If you never wrestle with anything that you read or hear or come across in life, it's just a conveyor belt. Like, there's no growth. It's just I don't know. Good luck with that if you're doing it. There are times and place for peace, but growth generally requires a little bit of violence, hostility.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when the plants are growing in the forest, they are literally beating out all the plants next to them for the sunlight. It's like, if you are winning in the game of limited resources, then that means that you're conquering the other players that have access to the same resources. They're not, so it's like growth is definitely maybe not parallel with violence, but there is a correlation there.
creative destructive process.
Creative destruction process. I
They
like that.
are two poles of the same thing.
Excellent.
Similar in anyways. Moving
I
on.
like it. Moving on,
Sorry, guys,
I would
I'm
like to
tired
shout
tonight.
out.
I've had a long week.
We've been joined by Mr. Fast Abdul, who reminds us that he is here for the reading tech. This is good. And Fast Abdul is always talking about how he's here for the tech, but this is a personalized tech message. We not only get the copywriting, but this is reading tech. I am fascinated and greatly pleased that Mr. Fast Abdul is here and interacting with us, letting us know that he likes books about guys with swords, which I would heavily recommend the Berserk series, good sir. I don't know if you're an anime fan, but I love Berserk, and that's all about swords. So there we go. Oh, and also Robert E. Howard, the creator of Conan the Barbarian, learned many life lessons from Conan. Yes, there's a lot of life lessons to be learned from Conan. One, that the meaning of life is the slaughter of your enemies and the lamentations of the women and children. So that is the purpose of life, as quoted from paraphrased from Arnold Schwarzenegger. But gentlemen, it's about high time that we get to some of the questions from the book. So I should ask you guys some questions on the topic of the book. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that Mortimer talks about in this book, and I have navigated away from the notes page, haven't I? Is he's got 4 questions that everyone would benefit from when they read a book. So the first question is, what is the book about as a whole? The next one is, what is being said and how? The third is the book true in whole or in part? And then 4 is, what of it, what follows? Now, if we were to ask those 4 questions about this book, we could take them kind of sort of one at a time, a little bit piecemeal. The first question is pretty simple to answer, I would say. What is the book about as a whole? Oh, it's about, hey, this is how you read a book. So pretty simple. And then what's being said is how. That sort of kind of describes like the syntax of the book that goes through the process, and the order of operations in which a person would go from knowing nothing, reading the book, to knowing something. And then number 3, this is the question that I want to stick with you guys, is the book true in whole or in part? So, like, do you guys think this book is full of shit? Do you think that it is 90% true? It's like, where would you put this book on a scale of 1 to 100? 1 being false and 100 being there is no second best sort of thing. We'll go ahead and I'll toss it over to Mr. Moondog. You look like you're eager to answer.
Well, for a scale of that nuance from 1 to 100, that's pretty distinct and detailed. So, getting that nitty gritty, can I answer your question with a question first, which is
yes, Rabbi Moondog, answer my
taking
question.
this question: is the book true, or how true is it? If you're reading a fiction book, can a fiction book be more or less true? And if so, how?
Ooh.
I think the author answered this question in the book, which one of the things he says is that there is a suspension of disbelief, especially for fiction, or especially for narrative inside of the real world, which is that as a reader, you're willing, and even it makes sense to kind of give some, I guess, gray space or just like generosity to the author when they're trying to describe things. You understand that they may be describing something that is like biologically incapable or like physically impossible, but as long as it's not like to a degree where it just makes completely no sense, but to the point that it actually elaborates a further point, that can still be factually incorrect in the world that we inhabit. But for the story or the world that's being built in this fiction or narrative, it can make sense. It can illustrate a better point. But at the same time, famously, there are tons of books that jump the shark, if you will, and go way too far and take it too far. And at that point, I think the answer is yes. But even if it's not 100% accurate to real life, I mean, this is like the basis of science fiction pretty much, which is that you can still draw a lot from these science fiction books, because the whole point of this book is not to be factually accurate. It's supposed to tell something outside of the facts that's more of like a something more ethereal or something along like human experience.
Well,
Theoretical.
Exactly. So I wanted to actually distinguish 2 things that I think you talked about, because I think you talked about the believability of the story, and then is it saying something true? Because you can have how do we teach our kids truth? how did Jesus teach truth? Through fables and stories and parables. So obviously, there's a way for us to take fictional information and learn something true about the world. Jordan Peterson talks about this when he's talking about great fiction and how do you define a great fiction. It's and then he distinguishes even within levels of great fiction. For example, Ayn Rand has fiction that's considered great because it says something true about the world that is important and worth knowing and understanding. However, it's not as great as Dostoevsky's fiction because he also takes things that are true, says things that are true about the world. But where Ayn Rand is inferior is she takes her characters are very unidimensional representative of like a motif or a theme, as where Dostoevsky is able to take characters and integrate both a positive and negative or contradictory, that angel and demon polarity that we have into complex human characters. So within fiction, you can learn something true, even though that it's about non-true events. And then what's going to make that easier or harder is going to be how able are you to step into the story to begin with? Because if it's structured in a way to where you can't even engage with the higher level truth that it's trying to talk about, then you're going to be distracted from getting to that level anyways.
Yeah.
Now back to your question. Well, unless actually,
That's a good thread. That's a whole excellent thread. Man, I wish I had Otter AI running right now because like I've learned that there's a thing that will transcript conversations real time, and I don't know if Otter does it, but you can use that to create like a tree of thought where it's like, we've got the main conversation line and a branch of thought peers off to one side, and then another branch of thought comes off that, and you end up with this gigantic root structure, and the conversation goes in whatever direction it wants to. But from the like the production standpoint, it's like it's good to be able to like to okay, we're gonna prune that one, we're gonna snip that one, we're gonna go deep onto that, but we want to make sure that we come back to here later. So it's just like this is super fun and awesome.
Well, the good
Don't
news
worry
is
about my question.
we're
This is
live.
fun.
So, you can run Otter at 57 minutes or 55 minutes later on and
Yeah,
do a
well, I've already
recapture.
used up all the free Otter,
Oh.
all the free Otter for my trial because it just transcribes live. It doesn't create the visual tree thing, which is something that I would love to know. If any of you guys out there know an AI program that takes real live notes and also creates mind maps, like that would be a super cool thing. But enough about me. What was your statement that you had made there, Moondog?
Well, you were asking me how true is this book on a scale of 1 to 100.
Yeah.
So after that little side quest, my answer will be 500. Just because, it's arbitrary enough, this 1 to 100 thing anyways. But this book does at least 5 good things for you. I just decided. It's going to point out, first of all, that you don't give the same effort to all books. Not all books are equally deserving of your effort. However, there are a number of books which are more deserving of a greater deal of effort than what you're going to, default give. Then it gives you an instruction manual on the kinds of things to ask, to look for, and invites you to argue with the author on those things. But more important, so it invites you to argue with the author, but more importantly, it gives you a prerequisite for argument, which is understanding. And this alone is what makes the book worth a 500, because there's a quote in there that he says, I hear my students say things like this all the time, and it makes no say, I don't know what you mean, but you're wrong. And it makes no sense. It's utterly absurd. And how many arguments?
I think at that point in the book, the guy literally says, like, at that point, it's literally just not continuing the conversation.
Yeah, that's the emotional reaction right
And
there.
I promise you,
No, the emotional reaction is not continuing it. The emotional reaction is, I don't get it. I disagree. The guy's like, cool. You are not worth talking to.
100%, because you don't speak politics to a 3-year-old. You don't talk economics to your dog, right? It's like unless you're trying to practice, for your own sake, um, you engage in conversation with equals, and if someone proves themselves not to be an equal by showing you that they're emotionally invested in a predetermined answer, then it's like, oh, thank you, you've
I don't
saved
think
me the time.
entirely about emotions, though. I think that it can
Not
just be
entirely, sure,
fact
but that's just the first thing I popped up on.
I hear you, but at the same time, it's like just because something exists and you don't understand it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And I think that's what the author is trying to highlight here, which is like there are levels to this. And as Moondog pointed out earlier, there are levels to people's intelligence and their capability to grasp certain things or even like conceptualize things spatially. So it's sometimes this weird conundrum where it's like you want to have that higher conversation, but like deep down you might know that you're just like physically incapable of it. Kind of a scary thought, but I don't know.
We all have our
To turn
limits,
this
I
into
suppose.
to turn this into a useful tool, or for your toolkit, not necessarily for everything, but when somebody tells you you're wrong, that you are wrong, ask them to re-articulate your argument. Because if they can't, then you can say to them, okay, so either hopefully you'll have the opportunity to clarify what your argument is, either to them or the audience that it matters to. Because a lot of times if you're getting these tiffs, if that person's closed, it may not be worth it unless there's another audience that it's worth at least, having the information out there. But
Yeah, you have to check it for accuracy.
but so many times people aren't even listening to what you said. They just have something that they want to jam down your throat. So they'll be if it sounds like you're disagreeing with them, whether you are or not, they'll say, no, you're wrong, and then they'll just repeat whatever it is that they want to say. So one thing to help with that is you can acknowledge what they're saying, understandable, maybe repeat a little bit of it back to them, and then that'll prime and prep them to be like, now, could you explain to me what it was that I said that was wrong, or where it was that I was wrong? Get them to be specific. And then if they're being dodgy, be like, okay, so you didn't know what I was saying, or you didn't hear it, you were just excited, they were excited to get what they have to say. But you point out, okay, so you said I was wrong, but you didn't even know what I was saying. Like, can't say and if they're adversarial, it could be like, you can't say someone's wrong unless you understand first. Well, hopefully you can do it more playfully, like, all right, can I say what I was trying to say now?
Yes, and you might be able to generate some good people points by, well, so first off, reiterating what this is like a technique both in dating women and also in like making friends and influencing people and like doing good business and stuff, is like you repeat the thing that the person has just said. So I'm kind of doing it right now with you Moondog, is like I'm reiterating the thing that you're talking about, and it's like I'm acknowledging you, I'm giving you validation, and I'm making sure that you understand that I understand that I've absorbed and I've treated your information with respect, rather than just like launching into my own little monologue and launching into my own little tirade. So like,
and
that's a fantastic skill for people to have. Go ahead.
And also, you're giving me the opportunity to hear back what I said from an observer position. And a lot of times people think out loud. People think through, they don't always say what they mean. And sometimes when they hear it, sometimes they don't realize it until they hear it. I'll put it that way. But if they hear it, it gives me an opportunity to be like, no, that's not what I meant. Or, oh, I forgot this. Or to expand on and to clarify your thinking even more articulately.
Yeah, man,
Articulate.
this is some great like how to win friends and influence people that I did not, I had no no presupposition that we would get into this conversation talking about books and things. But like, I suppose that books at the end of the day are basically just like a one-way conversation. It's intended to spur the reader into thinking and then generating their own response. But yeah,
if you're engaging with books at the level that he's suggesting that you should, and that I guess assumed was normal, but probably isn't, you're deciding which books / authors you want to be friends with, because you're going to take those ideas and you're going to carry them out into the world for past this person's initial effort, because that's what they wanted you to do. That was their call to action for writing a book and having someone else read it, was to relay this information and to have it further relayed. So you're helping to distribute And a lot of times it's not. So it can be information or it can be an idea, and those are two different things. Because information is something that you can have, but often the way that Jordan Peterson says it is people don't have ideas. More often than not, ideas have people, and we see that in our current age of ideology possessing people past their normal limits of humanity. But yeah, if you're how to win friends and influence people, it makes sense because like maybe just because all my friends are books. This is exactly where I thought we
Dude,
were going.
that's genius. All my friends are the authors of the books that I read. That's something that I had never thought about, but when you say it out loud, like that
And not
fucking clicks,
necessarily the
man.
authors, because some authors have a variety of books, and I like some, not the other, or I like a certain book and not
Fair point.
necessarily. But yeah, I'm making relationships within my own psyche, my own imagination, which is
Yeah.
image nation, between ideas, concepts, and if you're doing it, if it's meaningful enough, you're gonna keep finding it in life, and you're gonna have a syntopical reading of experience, basically. Like it's like, oh, this thing that you read about, this thing that in the movie that you saw, this poem that you heard, this experience that you had, these are all going to come to create a more articulated, higher resolution image and understanding in your consciousness. That's kind of what we're here for as a theory.
My ego stroking, my self ego stroking sense is tingling, and I'm thinking like, man, as we are on this podcast, we're not really writing a book, but we are documenting information in a more
We're
fast and
authoring a
real time.
conversation.
Yeah,
Authoring a conversation.
yeah, and so like, and people get to be a part of this. It's not just the three of us. There's 10 viewers right now. We've got 5 people on X and we've got 5 people on YouTube, and they're participating in this conversation from um a mostly listener, but like not just listener. Like you guys can also participate. Like you guys can put up chats. Like Fast Abdul and like Arceus and let's see who else. Oh. Hexagon Lost Nation. Like there's people that are able to interact with us and give us feedback on the ideas that we're having and the things. And like the tragedy is that it's 7 seconds delay between when we have the thought, then when they hear the thought, the time taken to tap it out on a keyboard and hit enter. So now you've lost 20 seconds of conversation thread. And
Yeah,
like you have to
what
be
a
able to,
tragedy relative to the months and months it used to take to carry on horseback and ship across the ocean. So, tragedy,
fair,
blessing,
yeah.
perspective.
Oh man, yeah, you got it. Yeah, my brother in the chat. Yes, my brother gets to experience it both live, hearing it from the room next door, and also in the chat. So, this is great. We got a great thought here from Arceus, by the way. The more condensed that a digest is, the more selection has occurred. The greater the condensation, the more important we know something of the character of the condenser. Reading digests is therefore some of the most difficult and demanding thing you can do. And then she goes on to say, it's great to use AI summaries. So how do we use them to incorporate this concept? It is fascinating to see how AIs can summarize things. I spent the last 3 hours or 4 hours of my day before the show started running this book on Audible on my phone, screen capturing the whole thing at 3 times speed, and then putting that whole thing into AI to get like a summary of the book. Now, it didn't work as well as I thought it would because I had the book going at 3 times speed, and I don't think that I had more confidence in Plod, or more confidence in Plod AI being able to discern words and things. But like AI's ability to summarize is getting pretty fucking crazy, and uh, digests being like the most important information squeezed down into one. The concentration. You take the jug of orange juice, you remove all the water, you're left with the orange concentrate. You pack that up, and then you consume it, and it's like, I've had all the orange juice, and it tastes fucking super shitty because it's concentrate and it's not like delivered to you at the normal pace. But like the AI ability to summarize things, the AI ability to take a stream and you click on a link and you put it into an AI and you say, give me a summary of what this person's talking about. You know, like I've been taking all of Brandon Joe Williams course videos and I've been turning them into ebook PDFs. and I've been summarizing and keeping track of the notes and the definitions of like all the legal stuff and all the craziness that goes along with that. Like, how do we use the AI to summarize things effectively without losing the the core message and getting lost in the concentration is a very good question and a very good point, Arceus. That's an
Well,
important thing for
I'm
the folks to think about.
I'm going to argue with the author of this comment a little bit,
Oh yeah.
especially where they say that reading digest is therefore some of the most difficult and demanding reading you can do. Now, I would argue that all of the difficulty lies on the condenser. So the real difficulty is on somebody who's taking on making those selections. How let's just establish a baseline. There are better and worse ways to make selections. If somebody's doing every other word, that's probably not the best condenser. That's not the most efficient. You're not going to get the meaning in the intended meaning the way that it was. So there are probably ways that's an obvious way that the meaning could be distorted or misunderstood or not understood as easily. So I think the selection process is actually where all the difficulty comes in between taking something in its whole context and then trying to suss out the part that's worth holding on to. I will say that Tom Butler Bowden in his 50 classic series, so he has 50 psychology classics, 50 spiritual classics, 50 economic classics. There are a bunch of them.
You've recommended those quite a bit.
Yes, these books, they're another ones that I got a lot out of, especially when there was 6 out at the time and I had a month where I was doing something kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And I was able to take those 6 books, read those 6 books back to back. So basically being exposed to 300 classic ideas within a 30-day period versus, the year probably would have taken me even just doing those books. Even us doing those books 1 a month, it'd be 6 months. But, that wasn't him, it was Mortimer.
There you go.
Well, I disagree with Mortimer on that one there too.
There you go. Excellent.
He also lived well before the age of modern. He lived in an era where to get anything published, there was a certain amount of friction, so it had to be of some value. So, but we live where literally anybody can. The cost of convenience has gone down so much in a distribution to where there's less filtering on the front end.
This dude was born in 1902 and died in 2001. Good for fucking him. 98, almost 99. Almost 99.
Boom.
I'm sorry, I threw you off. What were you saying?
I don't know.
Okay.
I forgot.
Yeah. That was Mortimer's observation, not Arceus. So excellent point there. But yeah, the cost, that's what you were saying, the cost of production and the ability to print thoughts and ideas.
Well, I was saying Mortimer lived in an era where it was a lot harder for idiots to get access to his attention span because the internet didn't exist. There was some filtering on the front end that kept that if something was costing airwaves, whether it was radio or publisher or ink, newspaper, since there was a cost to it, there was a lot more. There was some front end filtering that made sure it met at least a certain threshold. These days, you just have to be a lot of that discernment is put back onto you. It's not necessarily all being done on the front end because of the cost associated with it. But it's always required. The discernment is always required of you. That's been the whole point of one of the main points that we've been talking about that this book brings forth is you are not you're not a barrel to just have information dumped into. You're a coin sorting machine that gets to decide where that information goes, which ones you keep, which one gets stored for daily use, which one for specific use, which one for special use. That's the power that you have to engage with, and to the types of relationships that you can develop with books. Like I mentioned that my books are friends. Like not all my friends are the same. Some of my friends I would trust, with whatever, and some it's like, all right, if they're around, cool. But so I don't know. I'm tangenting again and giving parallel Exactly.
Will,
good.
what you got for the next
Put us
question?
back on track. Yeah.
For the next question, so before I get to the next question, I just wanted to say that Mortimer Adler lived through so from 1910 or from 1902 to 2001, he got to see the beginning of the electrical infrastructure, like when electricity wasn't like commonplace and they started putting shit in, all the way up to the fucking the internet and all of that craziness, the dot-com crash and like the 2000 Y2K, all that craziness. What a span of time to live through. But the next question that I had was the final question of the book, which is like, what of it? So like now what do we, and we sort of kind of asked this, like what of it, what follows now that we have the information of like how to read a book. What I want to ask you guys is like, are you going to change the way that you approach books as a result of having consumed this one?
So go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say the answer is for me is actually kind of not really. So for me, this book it's one of those ones where it's like it is putting out into detail in clear words things that you've like thought and done before subconsciously. So for me, one of the ones that we're looking at here is the different types of books in particular, because he's not saying that one type is good or bad or better than others, but what he's saying is that when you're reading these types of books, to truly engage with it, you got to understand the style that it's writing and what it entails, both from the author's effort level or what they have to do, and then as a reader, how you can interact with it. So when it's stuff like the encyclopedia or manuals and stuff, that's very direct one-to-one. Like, this is accurate information. You just look at it, you reference it, you see if it's accurate in your real life item or whatever, and go with that. The history one was an interesting one because he's saying that you're trying to write about things that happened previously. You did not see it. The people that you talk to probably didn't see it. They've just studied it. Therefore, you can't really say that everything inside of history is accurate, but what you have to do is come to an understanding, or the author has to provide an argument that the things that they're describing more than likely happened. It's almost like court testimony. This is a great analogy that he made, which is like jurors are random people that obviously were not there at the event. So the whole thing that they're trying to do is to argue beyond a point of reasonable doubt, which is like you have provided enough facts and evidence and supporting stuff all along the way, which is that you were at that point. So as a reader, this is where it tells you to do more than just that one book you're reading, which is like, this is this person's account for history. Understand if what they're saying is probable, look at it compared to everything else, and then make your judgment if their probability is similar to the probable cause that other people have put out there as well. It's stuff like that. And then the guy also gets into like imaginative literature, plays, shows, that kind of stuff, and fiction as well. We talked about it a little bit in the past as well, to Moondog's question, which is like, the things don't have to be 100% accurate. Fiction doesn't have to mimic real life to still be a good book and still get a larger point across. So back to Will, it's like, am I going to really drastically alter anything that I'm doing out of this one? The answer is not really. I think I just have a better understanding and a more clear view of the things that I've been doing and whether or not I'm applying them well or incorrectly. So a lot of good information, nothing really like revolutionary, but it just feels so good to have it laid out in a way that you can be like, aha, that's what I was feeling. That's what I was thinking. This is okay. Now I have a clear way of having a shared like verbiage language with other people to like express these certain things. Say like, this is this type of book. This is this type of book. These things came out in this way. These other things came out in other ways.
That's a very good way to put it. I like that a lot. What about you, Mr. Moondog?
I'm gonna have to go with
change.
So I get the answer when I was thinking about answering it. I was thinking about answering it from when I read it the first time, the actions that I took as a consequence of having read it the first time. And then also moving forward. But then I thought about my answer is still going to be yes, because it's also relevant moving forward. But specifically on the new version of the book, not the original, but the new one with the fourth syntopical reading mode in there, the resources that he gives to the great books of the Western world, and just my deep interest in philosophy, poetry, literature, etc. Matter of fact, so after I read it the first time, this actually opened me up to literature and nonfiction a lot more than before. Before I felt that my value of reading, I defaulted towards getting information and reading nonfiction and reading practical books was the best use of my time. And I think there's other factors at play, but this one obviously had something to do with it. I became much more comfortable reading fiction, and not just for enjoyment. Like as a kid, I love like dragon stories, the Harry Potter, Dungeons and Dragons stuff. Like, but I felt like whenever I was a kid, I had the luxury of time to where I could do that for my own amusement or entertainment. And it was after reading this book that I think Candide was one of the ones that I read fairly recently after I kind of started getting more comfortable with fiction, which is a great book to practice. Anyways, that's a tangent. So moving forward I still haven't been able to go through all of with the additional information and additional tools that I've had, for example, of Tiago Forte's Building a Second Brain and using digital notes apps in order to organize my own thoughts and relationships between these ideas. Mortimer Adler's work, both specifically in this book and at Encyclopedia Britannica, putting together the works of literature around great philosophical ideas it's just been a constant treasure trove. It's given me over a decade's worth of resource to go back to and to continue to learn and to grow from. And I fully expect that for another 10 years at least, because that's at least how long it would take me to put together a notes app and to get enough stuff in there to where it would have sufficiency to start pulling me away and maybe being distracted from all the source stuff. Anyways,
Do you think you're gonna build your own Moondog encyclopedia? I might be cracking open a can of worms here asking you this, but from your second brain, are you gonna build your own Moondog collection of information?
I have 4 kids, so having a catalog of ideas that are worth considering, or terms that are worth understanding, or protocols that are worth engaging in certain scenarios would probably not be a bad idea for me to put together as a resource for them, and further down the chain, even after I'm gone, for their considerations.
Yeah, excellent. I love hoarding information. It's one of my
Me
favorite
too.
things. So anytime that
Problem.
there's an opportunity to take valuable things and steal it and condense it and put it all in one place, it's something that makes me very happy. I don't know if I got the genetic need to save things from my parents and grandparents, because there's a lot of that sort of like style in my family, but I love saving information. That is one of the things that brings me great joy, saving and organizing information. So very relatable, Mr. Moondog. I'll go ahead and say for myself, to answer the question, that I don't think I'm going to necessarily change a whole lot about how I read, but I am going to be more mindful of it. Very similar to your answer, Zenith, where it's like, yeah, this definitely describes a lot of the things. Like I notice now, I I'm probably going to keep doing what I'm already doing because it works and because my life's already on like a sort of kind of track. And most of the books that I consume, they don't affect that track a whole lot, but they can. And so like I will take piecemeal things from them, you know, but I'm not gonna like pivot and just invest a shit ton of energy into getting one book and then just like totally taking everything out of War and Peace, or totally pulling everything out of Fountainhead by spending 4 months going through dissertations and figuring out what every single word means, and reading all of the not syntax but oh man, I can't even remember the word, syntological or whatever the word is.
Syntopical.
All the
Syntopical.
syntopical, yes. All the words that are all the books that are similar to that book. I don't think I'm gonna do that. Outside of what we generically do in this book club, which I suppose is relatively syntopical, because most of the things we cover either have to do with economics or human behavior. Like that's generally what we cover here at DJ Roundtable Book Club.
It's a pretty
Is
good way of
those two
describing it,
things.
actually.
Like,
Well,
like that's it. It's money and it's people. You know, we don't really cover much outside of that. And I suppose we could. You know, we'll
The fact
occasionally
that
look at catching squirrels or something. But go ahead,
the
David.
fact that when you're covering one book, you mention what was said in another book and the other book, and you argue them against each other. That is the definition of syntopical, or the purpose
Yeah.
of it, at least. So
I suppose we are accidentally being syntopical. I suppose when we talk about, you know, and this is something you've done a great many number of times, Zenith, is um when we have like Thomas Sowell or Adam Smith or oh fuck, I'm running a blank on names. Other such great economists.
It's
Damn
okay,
it, the
there might
pressure's
not
on and
only
I'm
those
failing.
two.
But you will reference other books that we've covered, and you'll be like, bam, 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 draw these little fucking these cool ass, like it's like the background where it's got like the pictures and the red string going everywhere to all the different
oh,
things. Zenith is very good at painting those pictures that bring together the economic ideas in the books.
That's
that's
honest. Go for it, please.
so I was just going to say quickly, that's one of the other things I liked about the Tom Butler Bowden books was at the end of each of his nutshells of a book, he says other books that also talk about it and the other books that are like this. So that gives you another resource for syntopical reading if you want to bounce ideas off each other. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know this is the personal story here, but like that is honestly one of the things I've like purposely been trying to do with book club, because I realized a while ago that I was listening to other people talk about books in ways that I did not even really like think about previously. And I remember growing up and being younger and stuff, like reading books, and I always like just read the book and kind of always took it at face value and never really like connected dots beyond that. Part of that was just because I was younger and didn't have those other reference points to touch onto and be able to draw the comparisons. But then when I was probably like young 20s, I was listening to people talk about books more in depth and able to like actually argue against them, point out factual errors, that kind of stuff. I was like, okay, this is what like reading and literature is really about. And I think that the book that we covered here, how to read a book, really shows you how to kind of get to that next level in a more practical way than me just trying to copy or mimic other people and then build up ultimately that reference library after, gosh, we're at an 85 now. So yeah, it feels good to actually have that reference library of things to talk about and connect the dots and compare the values and whatnot. But I mean, this was a good one for sure. I think that if I had to like say how this book really does it, the way that I thought about it is like the book kind of shows you the full spectrum of literature. And then it says, okay, understand where you fit on this spectrum, understand where the authors actually fit on that spectrum as well, and how you are starting to interface with that author, whether you're like missing each other, you're going past each other, or you're meeting each other right at the middle there. So, I mean, yeah, like if you like the kind of analysis that I do, I'm doing it on purpose. And good news is, like, I think it's a learned skill for sure. So it's not something you're going to be locked out by your IQ. I think it might just be a matter of time, and you got to have that knowledge base.
We got the old immersion, the old good old fashioned immersion. You just fucking brute force it, and eventually you'll find your way there. I like it. Speaking of,
It reminds me, sorry, quick
Go ahead.
tangent, but it's a fun one because
Yeah.
you guys are familiar with the MK Ultra stuff, and so
Yes.
one of our generals during the, I just remember reading a YouTube comment, and it was talking about because one of our generals is in charge of it, believed that you could phase through the wall because it's atoms, and so if you ran through the wall at the right, whatever. So one of the
All
YouTube comments
electrons
is
line up perfectly.
our leaders during the Cold War literally running headfirst into a wall.
Yep. Staring at goats.
Yep. Fun stuff. Anyways.
Mm-hmm.
It's where theory meets practice. Sometimes you got to run into the wall to be like, maybe that math was off.
Yeah.
So on the
Sounded
topic
good.
of syntopical reading, do you think that it kind of like does it relate or does it map out over what happens in the crypto world or what happens in like the political and narrative world? Do you think that there's a correlation there? Because I would argue perhaps.
I think there's definitely a correlation with how humans operate and repeating mistakes, because a lot of things require you to have a knowledge base to do things. For an example, I I saw someone who was actually like in video game design answering questions from young people about how to get into video game design. They're like, okay, if you had to design like the college level course for me to like start building video games, the guy was like, cool, you're gonna go read probably 100 different books. The reason you're going to do that is you need to know all these things out there, see what people did, spark your own ideas, understand that like I can teach you coding, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to create a great game out of a narrative perspective, mechanics perspective, how it all is cohesive together, that kind of stuff. And then
Game theory, shout out to Kool-Aid.
not quite that game theory, different theory of games. But for human history, we have history to show what humans have done in the past. We are pretty much fundamentally the same people that came before us. I personally think it's been a big battle of the 20th century, which is believing that we can perfect man and we were fundamentally different from the people before. But I think that it's kind of like the idea of seeing a learning curve in progress, which is that the more syntopical knowledge you have, it means that you're going to be a little bit further along that learning curve and you're not going to be making mistakes that other people have made in the past. Again, that's a very common theme throughout a lot of the books that we read here, which is learning from other people. Don't make their mistakes, make your own unique mistakes so that other people can also learn from you as a result. So when it comes to whatever it is in the cryptocurrency space or politics or life or whatever, having that knowledge base, aka the syntopical understanding, I think it's the thing that really pushes knowledge forward and pushes that learning curve higher and higher. So in the crypto space, we got to learn some lessons repeatedly. Something about don't keep crypto on central exchanges. Your private keys are between yourself and God, no one else, and stuff like that. And the more
no leverage.
Leverage
or
is bad.
You can do leverage if you want, but it's a risk. Yeah.
For the love of God, know what you're getting yourself into. Please understand how you're not paying in units of US dollars, but paying in the units of crypto that could also be going down at the same time. So it's like infinitely more crypto as well. Like it's this kind of stuff. You got to learn it. Otherwise, you're probably going to keep stepping on the same rakes that somebody else stepped on before. So there you go.
My parallel would be, so I'm looking at your Telegram notes. So for inspectional reading, read the title. This would be people reading headlines, and then they have an idea of what's going on. Analytical reading, that would be, what is the author trying to say? So say you read a headline about Richard Hart. You've done some inspectional reading. Going to his YouTube page or channel to listen to what he has to say in his own words, that would be a form of analytical information seeking, seeing what this guy has to say for himself. Then you hear him start mouthing off about, whatever it is, this, that, and the other, and you decide to go check out those sources to see what they have to say for themselves, and maybe check out some other sources of what they're having to say about the initial claims that you were reading into on Richard Hart. That would be the syntopical form. So you saw a claim, made you interested to go check out a source. Maybe that claim was validated or invalidated, or you heard another claim that was worth checking out, and then you're just doing this big merry-go-round of what's interesting and makes sense and is of enough meaning and value for you to care about, to spend your time, energy, attention, and your money, which is what we've decided is a universally, exchange of energy. It's universally accepted because you got to protect your team or protect your meat, because what you spend your time on, pay attention to, exchange your energy or money with, these are the things that literally create your worlds, both inside and then manifesting outwards, and then you interpret it based off of what's going on inside, and it's just input output over and over again. But it starts with where you have the control access, is deciding what kinds of things are you going to pay attention to, where you're going to spend your time, and what are you going to exchange energy with, and what kind of energy are you going to exchange, what kind of energy are you taking on, and what kind of energy are you putting out.
I have a follow-up question. It's a little bit off topic, but is there a book that has changed your life because you guys read it slowly, or because you guys read it like meaningfully and purposefully? For me, I'll let you guys think about it. But for me, it was Starship Troopers. That was the book that changed my life, because I really, really consumed it. And I consumed it multiple times. So many fucking times I've read Starship Troopers, because it's just like what me and Zenith were talking about when we covered it. It's just the peak book. It's got great descriptions. It's got great military relatability. It's got like pretty damn decent philosophy. You know, it makes you feel good, and it hits all the fucking wickets. But I consumed Starship Troopers several times and came to the conclusion that like, oh, the whole idea of big system over self, and there has to be something to counterbalance the value of the voting system that currently doesn't exist, you know, in the um American system of like politics and legislation and stuff. It's like if everybody gets to vote and it doesn't cost anything to vote, then like what is the real value of the thing? If you don't have to sacrifice the value on the one half of the equation, then like what is the value on the other half of it? You know, and it just kind of gets cheap into something. But Starship Troopers is the answer for me for reading a book slow. And I didn't read it slowly. I just read it many times, and that had the same effect as reading it slowly or reading it thoughtfully. But do either of you two have a book that you consumed? It looks like Moondog. You've got an idea.
Yeah.
What's something that's
Well,
it's
Man's Search
changed
for
your life?
Meaning is not one that I've necessarily gone back to over and over, but I did for each of my kids because it was required reading for them. And by Viktor Frankl, you know, he went through multiple concentration camps, and he talked about his observations on those who survived versus those who didn't wasn't necessarily as circumstantial as you would expect. It was a lot more fortitude, the meaning that they attributed to what was going on around them than you might expect if you didn't have somebody who had, you know, data on it suggesting otherwise to you. But the answer to your question for me is a book called The Kybalion by the Three Initiates. It's a book about 7 principles of natural law. People have heard terms like as above, so below, or I've talked about like the principle of polarity. So it has these 7 principles of natural law. And it seems like a very basic book, and it is. It's describing very fundamental, foundational type concepts, ideas. But for me, each time I've read it, because of the activity level of my engagement with books, the conversations that I have gotten into in my own head that have been spurred by and spun out from the resonance and the frequencies of going back to that book over and over, it's just it's one of those that it continues to give me. It's like it's so basic that whatever point of life I'm at, it gives me a message, or I'm able to read it based off of the point of life that I'm at. I'm able to understand it from the point of life that I'm at, so I'm able to get something new out of it each time.
So
the Kybalion by the
this
Three
is an
Initiates.
evergreen book. Then you can
Yeah.
reread it whenever.
Yeah.
That's
For
awesome.
me, it has been.
What about you? What about you, Zenith?
I think I'm going to take the opposite stance here. I don't think the speed at which I've ever read a book had any impact on the understanding or how hard the book hit me.
Sure. Remove the word speed. Replace it with whatever.
For me, I very rarely go back and reread things. I'll rewatch stuff all the time, but when I do also read or go back to a book, it's similar to when I'm viewing things, like having seen a TV show and there's like a twist at some point, and then if you rewatch it, you can kind of start to see the foreshadowing is more obvious. That kind of stuff I've definitely seen that sort of impact before. But at the same time, this might also just because I'm a cynical engineer, and the things that I reread the most are technical manuals. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's that thing that I missed. Yeah, that was valuable because previously it didn't work, and now it does.
The focus of the question I want to emphasize more is like the change your life part more so than the slowly or the speed of the book. It's the question presupposes that there's a book that you've invested a type of some sort of value system in,
Spending
whether
mental
it's-
energy on it. Like what
Yeah.
book has instigated the most mental energy or engagement with you really considering and maybe reflecting or building something
Yeah.
from that engagement?
Yeah, specifically regarding like changing your life. Is there something of that nature, Z, that has
There's no
like
single book that I can pinpoint. I think it's more of like I've thought of, I guess the way that I've really engaged with books is that especially as an adult, is that I've thought of things or I've heard things and then thought about them further. And then I go to books as an extra resource to dive deeper into the things that I'm already thinking about. So for me, it's less about like the book is presenting something very like sporadically or surprise, haha. It's more of like I am curious about a topic and I'm trying to learn more, or something wasn't working for me in my life and I'm trying to figure out why or what's going on. So then I do more research. I get pointed towards these books. The books give an explanation. So for me, it's like trying to it's like trying to pinpoint which bit of water in my cup is the tastiest. It's like, I don't know, I couldn't tell you, but I just know that after drinking the whole thing, it was really tasty.
That's really
So
good.
so for me,
Well,
I know this is a terrible answer because I can't just give you a book. I can just
Good
tell
thing
you
we
that,
made
like,
that tier list, huh?
hey, if anything, that helps me sort my own thoughts to that tier list at the end of the year. It does
Okay.
actually really help and help me
Yes.
remember all the journey along the way and be like, okay, these were the highs, these were the lows. And I can almost like identify like turning points as well, which is interesting. Kind of like rounding the corner on certain thoughts.
I like that. Moondog, you had a thought you wanted to interject there?
Oh no, I was just gonna say he was talking about he's already usually interested in something by the time he gets there, and then it'll explain something. And I was just gonna ask him, well, if it gives you an explanation, there's diagnostic explanation, but then there's also like prescription, so like what you do about it. And I was just curious if there's anything on the what you do's about it, or even just clarifying, like for example, when I read so Brene Brown talks about the difference between shame and guilt, where shame is about who you are and guilt is about so shame is character and guilt is about your behavior. Being able to integrate those kinds of terminologies or ideas definitely. I know pivot points in my life where it's not like, oh, I turned around 180 degrees, but that gave me, a slight pivot to be able to navigate certain situations more effectively, repeatedly.
That's fair.
Reliably. That's the word I was looking for. Reliably.
Tell you what, I'll answer Will's question then. So if there's one book that I've probably gotten some of the most use out of is actually Cosmic Justice by Thomas Sowell. So I read
Oh.
this probably when I was like 23. And I remember at the time I was like entering the world really as an adult, trying to deal with a lot of things. And I definitely hadn't like had exposure to a lot of, I guess, really detailed understanding and breakdowns of the things that I felt like were being foisted upon me. And it was a lot of, I was looking at the world. Gosh, this was probably 2017, 2018. It was when we were really starting to ramp up like the polarization of the times, and a lot of kind of like tribalism really, I think, hit a peak during this time. And I just remember like seeing the arguments and hearing them and being like, I don't agree with that, but I couldn't really pinpoint it. And I remember Thomas Sowell's Cosmic Justice. It's not a super long book, actually, but what it really does is it breaks down and talks about like emotional arguments and these ideas of like social justice and stuff are really just machinations of humans made to like be wielded as like power games, or just are really just appeals to emotions at a core. And that was the book that really helped me identify these things and be like, okay, this is manipulation as opposed to someone making a principled argument.
Yeah.
And then additionally, after that, I had to read other books and listen to other people and be like, cool, you can make principled arguments, but at the same time, you can make a principled argument all day. But what it's doing, if you take it too far, is that you're letting perfect get in the way of progress. So there you go. One of the great minds of our time, Thomas Sowell, Cosmic Justice. Boom.
On the subject of perfect in the way of progress, we've got an answer here from my very own brother in the comments. We've got progress in the way of perfect. We've got $100 million offers by Alex Ramosi. That is definitely a life-changing book, and especially so for those of you that don't know, my brother Sam runs the business Rapid Architectural, where he was so kind as to draw a house on one of my hex tablets. I fucking love this thing. I'd never want to clear it, but my brother runs a business, and it's crazy fantastic just looking at the growth of this business over the last year. When I was helping him out doing cold calls and writing scripts for like how we reach out to builders and how we talk to people, and just like where he's at now versus where he's at then. And I can totally see that $100 million offers by Hormozy is like the thing that he has taken and ran with as like, this is what puts him in the direction of success. This is what has got him all the results, and making crazy money selling plans to like all of the builders, the spec house builders in the College Station and Bryan area, like it's super successful and it's super awesome, and I can see a lot of the stuff in, like, I'm working for him now. I'm doing sales and things for him and solving problems of that nature, and so it's like I can see all of these little things that he's implemented and how all this stuff from Hormozy has made these differences. So, shout out to Sam in the chats, shouting out
I,
Alex Hormozy. A
I know
great
we've
fucking book.
spoken very highly about this book and all the Hormozy books, but $100 million offers, it's the first one out of the 3 that are released so far, by the way. In my opinion, I think this one kind of stands head and shoulders above the other 2. The other 2 are fantastic business books, but Alex Hormozy really just like smacked this so hard on the head that it echoed out beyond the business world. Just the idea of making the offer that's so good that people feel stupid saying no to it. And then it's as simple as it is, but the value equation and just being able to understand that and apply it to any type of persuasion, I think was uniquely powerful about this book and why it separated itself above the other ones.
I do think that this one was the best one. I need to reread $100 Million Leads to refamiliarize myself with it. And we did just recently cover $100 Million Models. So rememberable that I remember the name. But he does have some great books, and I really do think the $100 Million Offers. I'm right there with you, Z. That was the best one for sure.
The other ones are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
This one's just better.
Yep. Excellent. If there's any other things that the folks in the audience are interested in shouting out as far as books that have changed your life, I'm more than happy to hear it, because I love this sort of stuff, because it gives me a direction as to like, oh, maybe I want to pursue that. Maybe that's something that I want to think about. Another one that I really need to go back and work through is Tiago Forte's Building a Second Brain. And that's just that might be a book that we recover on the DGen Roundtable, just like we recovered the Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. Because the principle of building a second brain, I've always had a horrible memory, and I've always like not known what to do about it. And just like the ideas that Tiago speaks of, and the way that he talks about like how you can use technology and you can use tools and you can use things other than your brain to remember things, was just like totally mind blowing and novel to me. So that's another one that has totally shaped and changed my life and things. But anyways, enough about that. One final question for you guys. From this book, is there one idea that would immediately benefit the folks at home who have not read this book that they can implement moving forward?
Before you can agree or disagree with someone, first you must understand what is being said.
Boom. That was the one that I was going to choose, so you beat me to it.
That's
a really
fantastic one. I guess is maybe
and
more...
you're allowed to reserve judgment, by the way. Sorry. There's a third option that people forget a lot of times.
Yeah, it's the magic third option. Like in crypto, when people ask us, is price going to go up or go down? And then Will says, it could go sideways.
Turns out doesn't go sideways, fucking plummets down to the ground. So what do I fucking know?
Yeah, for some reason, it's also the third option that also is the most painful for some folks.
Yeah, for real. Sometimes crabbing is worse than just dropping, because dropping, it's like, oh, well, I can go and, sell my kidney and buy another Bitcoin, maybe. It's like, but if it crabs, it's like, what am I going to do? Anyway, you were saying, Z, what's an idea that could benefit the folks at home?
I think the levels of reading or literacy, if you will, I think that's a very good one. Like if
the 4,
the 4, yes. So if books and reading kind of feels like at the end of it, you kind of look up and you're like, okay, I got what it said, but I don't really know what to do with it. You might be kind of like stuck floating between a few of the different levels there. And having the levels clearly explained out to you might help you understand where you're at and how to get to the next point and how to start really like connecting those dots that you feel like you just can't even see. So it's one of those like know thyself kind of things. Mm-hmm. So it's like a self-test. Test yourself, see where you're at, see where you tend to be, see what you struggle with, and then understand that you are in your space. And the people that are writing these books can be writing it at different spaces for different people. Because I guarantee you, if all of us went back and read like Cat in the Hat or something. We're not going to get much out of it. We can probably like gaslight ourselves into maybe making some wacky conspiracy theory about crypto or something. But really, the point of those style books is the elementary level reading stuff. Granted, when we start getting to like Atlas Shrugged and whatnot, that's where we start really getting towards that higher level of stuff. So it's know yourself, know what you're interacting with, and hopefully it can help you bridge that gap between the two.
I like it. Excellent, excellent. Gentlemen, this has been a fantastic podcast. We've covered, oh man, we've been talking for 2 hours and I don't think we've even covered maybe 5%, 2% of the book. So it's like, right there in line with the amount that I feel that I've covered in listening to it. So in that respect, it is appropriate. But final thoughts, was there one last thing that was your favorite part or your least favorite part of this book? And then we'll go ahead and head on over into closing and stuff. Mr. Moondog, we will start with you, good sir. Is there something that really stood out to you or that you really fucking hated about this book?
I think I've covered most of it. I mean, my favorite thing really is the making sure that you understand before you even start worrying about arguing, or agreeing or disagreeing. But yeah, that's
Now that I realize it, that question is extremely similar to the last question that I just asked. What about you, Z? Any final shout outs from the book that you want to bring to the folks' attention? I've got one that totally non sequitur, but I want to give you the opportunity first.
Yeah, this is actually kind of a thought that came to me when we were having the show tonight, which is that after reading the book, I kind of started to see the book as the author would say, how they pitched it, what they're trying to say it's about. Not like what is the book about, but like, what are you about? What are you doing with this? What the author was doing for me is that he is trying to give an academic explanation of how to read books, understanding literacy, and all that stuff. I think that because it's highly academic, it takes reading and literature in a very pure and positive light. And the author even mentions this in the book, which is that one criticism you can have that people try to have for a book is that it doesn't go far enough or it doesn't explain enough. There should be more, that kind of stuff. What this book is really not going to touch at all is any sort of like power game or even kind of like the idea behind propaganda. Because this book really takes literature on face value and in the best possible light. But there's the darker side of humanity, which we know, which is that power is usually always afoot. And when it comes to the literature, that could also be true. It doesn't have to be true, but it could be true. So, look, we exist in the context that we exist in. And at the current time, people are always trying to go for their thing. This guy, I think, is very much an academic who lives in the world of literature and reading and stuff. And that's fantastic. And he wants more people to occupy that world. But at the same time, we've seen in the past that like literature and media can definitely be used for things other than just conveying the factual idea and basis. So I think that this book would be a very good lead-in to maybe something around the idea of, I guess propaganda is probably the best word for it.
The creation of propaganda.
Yeah,
like it.
It's because theoretically, if you took this book, if you truly understood this book, you could also start to see the gaps and the cracks in literature and how it can be used to kind of push certain agendas and stuff and really sway an audience. Because in the book, the guy talks about like, look, you are going to be trying to persuade your audience. You're going to be doing it either logically or you're going to be doing it emotionally. He doesn't even fault the authors for that do it emotionally. In fact, he kind of applauds them and says like, look, you're trying to get the point across. This is how you do it. If you got the point across, it worked. If you can extrapolate that to the next level, you could start trying to, do other things with your works. So there you go. Just the shower thought that I had.
You made me think about it.
Go ahead.
I 100% agree that he doesn't go far enough in equipping you with the difference between an honest and a dishonest author. Like he tells you, yeah, you can disagree, or people might be, but he doesn't really he doesn't go far enough in helping you to identify some of the patterns that you could probably use to help do that. Anyways,
I agree, but to the author's point, I think that sort of thought is beyond the scope of what he was trying to accomplish here.
Yeah,
and I think that one of the quotes I had from the book is where did it go? He says that a fine work is called fine because it does not extend beyond itself and it has a finite finish. A fine work is self-encapsulating. That's why it's fine. Not because it's highfalutin and highbrow, but because it's finite.
So fine art comes from theme, meaning unto its being complete unto itself, or
Yes.
purpose unto itself. Yeah, fine.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, fiend. We got the oh man, the Latin in there. I like it. So Zenith, you're gonna love this. My ChatGPT final integration takeaway is that how to read a book isn't about books, it's about mental sovereignty. If you can't interrogate ideas, you're running someone else's operating system.
I think that might just be the AI trying to repeat back what you put into a lot there, buddy.
Oh, probably, but it's like, but it's under the same idea that it's like, look, if you can't sit here and consume books and create your own thoughts and stuff, then you're just regurgitating what someone else is saying. And so this book tries to teach you how to not regurgitate what other people are saying, the
How to have
propaganda.
ideas.
Yeah, how to have
having
ideas.
you.
I know that
Yes.
we knock this idea a lot, the idea of regurgitating what other people say, but I think we might have glossed over the point a little too much, which is that is always step one.
Yep.
You
Yes.
always
Yeah.
have to learn something
Sure.
before you can compare it to other things, because
Grammar.
otherwise you just have one thing.
Yeah, you have to take in their thoughts, their ideas and opinion, and run it against your own operating system, and run it against truth, and run it against observation. And
Novel
then
ideas are really rare. I
Mhm.
think this is something that we've seen through a lot of the books, which is like a lot of what humans do is honestly just synthesis. The people that are able to come up with genuinely new and creative ideas and ways of thinking are revolutionary and very, very, very rare. So
I argue with that idea. But Zenith, before arguing with that, are you familiar with the trivium and the quadrivium?
I am not.
Okay, so in classical education, the trivium are the first three basic foundational things, and I think it's phonetics, grammar, and I'm going to forget the third right now. But basically, what something is, the structure of it, and then probably what it means. And then the quadrivium goes into the synthesis of information, and it's that higher level learning. But you have to have the trivium as a foundation for the quadrivium. I'm actually going to have to refresh my own brain and be in a better state before I can talk about it better. But that's just a seed to throw out there, because in classical education, rote memorization is one of the most effective tools for that first level of learning, that trivium level of learning. You need to have a database to tap into, to synthesize from, before you can have anything to synthesize with. So it's we talk about it as if we're already above it, because that is we're at a point where we're expecting more of ourselves, but it is a prerequisite and it is foundational. Yeah. It's a part of the journey. It's not the destination. You're not supposed to stop there. It's like nihilism. Nihilism is a part of the journey where you feel hopeless for a moment, but it's when you stop there that you get into trouble, because it's not meant to be a final resting place.
Well said, sir.
Speaking of stopping places where we'll get in trouble, we got to keep this show rolling before we get in trouble and just go down these tangents, because, man alive, we could have a lot of fun. But I got to piss, and this show's got to end, and we got to send the folks at home to go and do the other things that they need to go and do. So, gentlemen, where can the folks find you? What have you got in the near future? And most importantly, where would you rate this book on a scale of 0 to 10,000 hours on the journey of a person's excellence? 0 being the start point, 10,000 being you are now an expert. Where should a person read this book on their journey between those two? Mr. Moondog, I'll toss it over to you, then Zenith, and then I'll finish up.
Don't find me, I'll find you if I care to. What I have going on, that is my business, not yours, until I'm ready to share it.
That's good. Well said.
But as far as 0 to 10,000 hours, I think reading this book fairly early on and then doing a refresher once you've had a little bit of practice under your belt implementing what it has to tell you is the best approach. It's not a really dense book. It's not really hard to grasp. It is something that you can go back to and get some nuggets from. But like I said, or like I think was reflected in both of your guys' answer of, are you really going to change anything, moving forward? This book wasn't really revelatory. It was more clarifying. But I think for somebody who's first starting out on that journey, it's going to be useful at having that clarity early on versus later.
Yep. Very good. Z, what about you? Where can the folks find you? What have you got going on in 0 to 10,000?
Folks, you can find me over on Instagram and X at ZenithDI. More importantly, you can find myself, Will, and the rest of the DGens, including this fine guy here, by scanning the Telegram QR code directly to my right. That'll get you inside of our private Telegram, our curated community, if you will. You can see the ongoing conversation, everyone saying, what the heck is going on with the charts today? And then also posting some good memes along the way. But beyond that, we got our Sunday show potentially coming up this Sunday. But every Sunday, we do a news show as our flagship show at 8 p.m. Eastern time, as is all of our streams. And outside of that, we're going to have Whiskey Wednesday coming up on Wednesday, as you can guess. And then next Friday, we are covering Book Club. I will be hosting this time. The book I've picked out is actually one that piqued my interest this week. It's called Status and Culture by W. David Marks. Yes, it's spelt like the Marks that you're thinking of. It is about how our desire for social rank creates taste, identity, art, fashion, and constant change. I found this one to be a very interesting pitch, so that is what we're going to be covering. And as Will said, it falls in line with our human experience topic, or human
Very
behavior.
good.
Excuse me. Yeah,
I like that.
that is all I got. Mr. Will Stevenson, where can the folks find you, and what do you have going on in the near future?
I gotta stop you, Z. 0 to 10,000.
Oh, right. I'm going to put this at 5 and 5,000. I think Moondog really hit it on the head there, saying like reading this somewhere early, but after you have a bit of a base. Because I think, like I said, for the thing that I think folks can get out of it is gauging yourself, gauging what level of reading you're at, and then trying to get to that higher level. And then revisiting once you've got a really good number of reps under your belt, I think is also going to be a good way of maybe like helping recontextualize the books that you've read in case you may have kind of forgotten the details of this one. And then it should help you finish out the rest of the journey towards mastery.
All right. That's a good answer. I like that. I would agree
500 and 5,000.
500 and 5,000. Okay.
Between
I was going to
500
say
and
1,000. Okay. I do think that this book could benefit just anybody right in the beginning because you can, just start doing things well. But like at the end of the day, you're the one that determines like what is the value and what is the investment that you put into everything. So you can read this book anywhere between 1 and 1,000 hours would be my answer. And then again, also, it would probably be good preventative maintenance, and it would be good to just keep in mind that there's some things that you might be missing. If there's a book that you think is really good and you want to extract maximum value out of it, you'll have this as a reference and you can come back to it. So anyway, anywhere between 0 and 1,000 hours is where I would recommend it. For the folks at home who are looking to find me, you can find all of my socials off of the link tree will.pls.fyi. That is where everything can be found for me. Again, like Zenith was saying, we can all be found at the DGen Roundtable Telegram. For those of you guys that are listening, not watching, it is t.me/DRT. That's Delta Romeo Tango. DRT, join now. And yeah, we'll definitely be here on Sunday, or at least I will be here, and I'll be talking out of my ass on what's going on in the cryptosphere. And if I'm joined by Z, then I'm joined by Z, and if not, then we're just gonna be making it up as we go. But we're here to have fun, and we're gonna be here every Wednesday, every Friday, and every Sunday, just like Zenith said. 8 p.m. Eastern is when we go live. And with that, I want to thank you all for spending your valuable time with us here on the DGen Roundtable. As Agent J often says, or he used to say back when he would stream with us, we know that time is your most valuable asset. And we appreciate you spending that time right here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Will Stevenson, but more importantly, you have been watching the DGen Roundtable, and I'm the producer, so I'm getting my trigger finger ready because it's time to remind all the folks at home to remember to DGen responsibly.